I love my friends at the Locked On Network, but unsurprisingly, they got TCU's projection wrong in the preseason poll. It's time to prove them wrong.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. Thank you to FanDuel for sponsoring the show. I'll tell you about them later on in the show. Those bonus bets, those deals, always available at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. TCU adds a pair of teammates from Port Arthur Memorial over the weekend, a corner and a running back. We'll talk about that in segment 2. We'll get some of your thoughts on my conversation with Clint Foster on Thursday about his documentary, Remember the Alamo Bowl, about the 2015 team, really TCU football in the Gary Patterson era and their incredible comeback against Oregon, the incredible comeback that Bram Kohlhausen is going through in his life after an accident while going hunting. He's, going through that recovery as well. It was fun to talk to him. So I'll revisit that a little bit in segment 3. But we start today. I don't really know the reason for this. The Big 12 decided not to do a preseason media poll this year. If I had to guess, I would say, if you remember last season, Arizona State was picked last. And they ended up winning the league. And I think the selling point for the Big 12 right now, if I'm being honest, and I'll talk about this more in segment 1, is that the league is wide open. It is a conference that is begging for somebody to take over. And as it stands right now, it doesn't look like anybody's really set up to step into that space. I would love for it to be TCU. I think they have the resources to do it, but nobody's done that yet. And I feel like there's a chance over the next few years that we see, one year we see a champion, next year it's somebody else. It's not going to be a decade ago, 5-6 years ago when Oklahoma was running things. And while that's fun for fans, I think it's good for the league. I think it's entertaining. I do feel like it's been used as a selling point against the Big 12 when it comes to the college football playoff. Because the way that critics perceive it is, it's just a bunch of mid teams that are playing each other. And nobody's really that good. If the SEC had this kind of parity, we'd hear all about how the SEC is just so deep and it's amazing. And every week something could happen and every team's great because they have so many great players. But since it's the Big 12, the way people talk about it is, it's just a bunch of mediocre teams beating each other every week, right? So, because there's no preseason poll, and I think if I had to guess, it's because they don't want to feed into that. The Big 12 doesn't want to feed into that when it comes to the college football playoff narrative. The host of the Locked On Network, the Big 12 host, we decided to do our own preseason poll. TCU comes in at number 7 in this preseason poll. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll pull it up for you here. If you're in the audio version, I'll run it down quickly. Arizona State is picked to be your champion. Kansas State, number 2. Texas Tech, number 3. Baylor, number 4. Iowa State at 5. BYU at 6. TCU at 7. Utah at 8. Kansas at 9. Colorado at 10. Houston at 11. Oklahoma State at 12. West Virginia, 13. Cincinnati, 14. UCF, 15. And Arizona, 16. So TCU at number 7, right behind BYU and Utah. For context, we did have the news that Jake Retzlaff, former BYU quarterback, would be leaving after he violated the honor code, and he would no longer be BYU's QB. We knew that going into it. So if you've listened to me this offseason, you probably could guess that I think this is incorrect. I don't feel like TCU is the 7th best team in this conference. If you're curious where I had the Frogs, I ended up putting them at number 2. I put Arizona State at number 1, mainly because they're the defending champs. I thought they did some nice things in the offseason. Sam Leavitt's coming back. Kenny Dillingham's a really good coach. But I believe that TCU can win a Big 12 title. Now, I tend to be somebody who is cautiously optimistic. I try not to be a homer, but I also try to represent our fan base in this school and this program and talk about the success that TCU has had. This team is good enough to win a Big 12 title. The schedule is tough. I'll get into that in a minute. But last season, was there a game that you thought TCU was outclassed from a talent perspective? The answer is no. Even the SMU game, where they gave up 60-plus points and they played horribly, SMU ended up being a playoff team. They had a great inaugural season in the ACC. It's on the road. You're down 17-0 before you even blink an eye. You give up a field goal on the first drive. Defense thought they had them stopped. They don't. They end up giving up a field goal, 3-0. Okay, not a big deal. 4th and 1. For whatever reason, Kendall Briles calls a speed option with Josh Hoover. He mishandles the ball, fumble, scoop and score. Touchdown, 10-0. You go 3 and out. You punt the ball. SMU takes it to the house. 17-0 midway through the first quarter. TCU fought back a little bit. They got within 3 a couple different times. Had a chance right before halftime to cut the lead to 3. They throw a pick 6. They end up going into half down 20. And they could not recover in the second half. But special teams touchdown. Multiple turnovers. 2 of those turnovers, a scoop and score and a pick 6. Automatic points. You're giving a good team automatic points. UCF, you can't stop the run. You can't run the ball late. You give up a big lead. You lose that ball game. Houston, I don't think it was a talent issue. You just got outclassed on the field. And you had some turnovers and you didn't play well. And this is not me making excuses. I understand you lose the games you lose, right? Because we can play this game with some of the wins too. Texas Tech, I'm sure the Locked On Texas Tech guys are like, we should have beaten TCU last year on the road. We had them dead to rights, and they come back and they win the ball game. Baylor, 1 possession game on the road. Had some injuries up front on the defensive line. Couldn't keep up with Bryson Washington in that rushing attack. You're returning pretty much everyone. Josh Hoover's coming back. You're mixing up things on the offensive line, but you have some important pieces there. Colton Deary moves to center. Cade Bennett coming back from an injury at the guard spot. You're deeper on the defensive line. Defensively, you have more reps. You have more understanding. You got players with more of an understanding of what you're doing on that side of the ball. And look at this list of teams again, if you're watching. Who looks head and shoulders better than anybody, but especially TCU, in this preseason poll? Yes, Arizona State has a lot of returners. They also lost Cam Scatterbo. They also lost the best player on their team. They're revamping and retooling a little bit. K-State coming off a disappointing year for their standards. They thought they were going to hit the ground running with Avery Johnson. It wasn't that simple. Texas Tech, I know they are the offseason winner. They've added everybody. Good for them. They're spending a lot of money. I appreciate it. I can respect it. But it's still Joey McGuire, who's had some consistency issues. And a team that looked like they had a path to the Big 12 championship last year. What do? All of a sudden, they lose to Baylor. They lose to TCU, and the season falls apart. Baylor, nice close to the season. But Dave Aranda was on the hot seat not that long ago. Iowa State losing a lot of players, especially at wide receiver, NFL-type players. BYU losing their quarterback right before the season starts. Utah was horrible last year. I know they think they've figured it out on offense, and just defensively they'll step in and do a great job. I know Kyle Whittingham's a good coach, but why do we think they're suddenly going to jump from arguably the worst team in the conference to be one of the best? Kansas was supposed to be that team last year. They didn't do it. Now they're running it back with Jalen Daniels. What's his health like? Colorado was replacing 2 of the best players in the country. Houston has done some nice things, but it's still Willie Fritz in year 2. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. It's been a mess lately. West Virginia, first-year head coach. Cincinnati, UCF, Arizona, I don't think those teams are going to be factors. But my point being, everybody has flaws. And so much of TCU's flaws last year were self-inflicted. It was 2 things. Couldn't run the ball, had trouble stopping the run, and the turnovers. Josh Hoover kept throwing the ball to the other team. Fumbles in bad spots. There's never a good place to have a turnover, but giving up, like having the ball in the red zone. Fumble on a snap exchange or on a zone read exchange. throwing interceptions in your own territory. Clean those things up, and you're a better team. And yes, the schedule is tough. You get North Carolina right out the gate with Bill Belichick. You get SMU early. You got to go to Arizona State. Colorado back at home. Kansas State on the road. Haven't won there in a long time. Baylor at home. West Virginia on the road. Never easy. BYU on the road. Even without their quarterback, this is going to be a tough game. Houston took your lunch money last year. You got to go play them at their stadium. But this team is good enough to do it. And for this coaching staff's sake, they better be good enough, because this is what they've been building towards. They have a clear plan of how they wanted to build this team. They wanted to do it around Josh Hoover, and with the guys they had on this roster, they have spent a lot of money. It hasn't been as flashy as Texas Tech that's going and acquiring new players. They're doing it a different way. They're using that money to retain the guys they have on the roster. This is the year to prove that this is the right way to do it. You've taken your risk. You've taken your gamble. You've said, this is our blueprint. We're going to do it by building a strong culture, by developing players, by having a team that's veteran-led and is ready to go in year 4 of this coaching staff's tenure. Well, now is the time. Everybody's back again. Andy Avalos, Kendall Briles. There's no excuses. Josh Hoover didn't miss spring practice. There's no reason to say this team shouldn't have high expectations. If the rest of the country doesn't know that, that's fine. They never do. When have they? They'll figure it out soon enough if you win games, but you got to win games and you got to make a statement early. You have to be together early. You can't sleepwalk through the first 6 weeks of the season and try to find your identity and try to find who you are. It's not going to work this year. They're good enough to do it. They have to execute now. When we come back, TCU adds a corner and running back to their 2026 class. We'll talk about that here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Thank you to FanDuel. New customers, go to FanDuel.com, check out the FanDuel app, get $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. You do have to win that bet. Plenty of opportunities right now with baseball, Rangers, Astros in full swing. Astros are red hot. It really annoys me because I'm a Rangers fan. But there's games every night of the week, even with the All-Star break coming up. Perfect time to join FanDuel. There's also the future bets for the NFL, for college football. TCU's over under 6.5. It's stealing money, man. It better be over. Barring some sort of injury, I don't see a way where they don't get to 7 wins. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Download it today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, or you don't have to use that code. Actually, just be a new customer. Make your first $5 bet. You win that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball, and also a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Over the 4th of July weekend, TCU's momentum on the recruiting trail continued. They landed a pair of teammates, actually, from Port Arthur Memorial High School. Brock King, a corner who is listed at 5'10", 178 pounds. He's a 3-star prospect, had offers from Arizona, Arizona State, Arkansas, Baylor, and others. TCU lands him. Explosive player. The first few highlights on his highlight reel for his junior year: kickoff return for a touchdown, punt return for a touchdown, taking the ball out of the backfield as a running back. So this is a dude, when he gets the ball in his hands, he can make plays. Now, I don't know if they're perceiving him or projecting him to be a two-way player at the next level. They're recruiting him as a corner, but I think it shows you those ball skills, that ability to catch the football once he has it in his hands, make a move, be explosive. That's always a plus when you just have great athletes. At that size, you worry a little bit about bigger receivers, but watching him, very physical, not afraid to mix it up at the line of scrimmage, try to jam guys, try to push guys outside, use the sideline to his advantage by working guys over to that side of the field and try to keep them from catching the ball. He deflected the ball over the place, did some really nice things. I like this pickup, another aggressive corner for this team to work with. And this 2026 class, they've done a great job. I told you, as soon as that house settlement got resolved and it was clear that starting this season, we're moving to a revenue sharing model instead of just strictly NIL, TCU has been very active in this recruiting cycle. It's painfully obvious that they were waiting for that decision to be made so that they could talk some real offers and real money with these players. Jason Bradford, another corner prospect. He's a 4-star player from Temple. And Jason might end up being a safety. I think that's the plan for him. He's much bigger than Brock is, but Brock handles himself well um, on the outside in coverage, makes some good plays, and again, has that ability as a home run threat on special teams or, taking the ball in the backfield, catching the ball in the backfield. There's different options. Always good to have plus athletes on the field with an all district corner last year from Port Arthur Memorial. Good offer list, and he'll have a chance to build on that during his senior season. But at least for now, he's committed to TCU and will be a Frog. Heavy edge rusher and like defensive line class so far from a defensive standpoint, but lately been more active in the secondary, both in at corner and safety. Brock King, the latest to commit. Also a running back commit, Monte Martin, who was also from Port Arthur Memorial, another 3-star prospect. Had offers from, I think his final 5 were Houston, TCU, Kentucky, and Cal. He ends up selecting the Frogs. TCU and Houston locked in a lot of recruiting battles lately. Rhett Gray, big offensive tackle who from Weatherford, who recently committed to TCU. He was also someone who was getting a lot of attention from the Houston Cougars, and TCU was able to win that battle. They win this one by getting Martin from Port Arthur Memorial. And TCU already had a running back in this class, Giovanni Graham. Now, the interesting thing about both these players, Martin is more of your, at least so far in his high school career, watching him play, your prototypical 3-down back. I mean, he's running the ball in the backfield, he's catching the ball in the backfield, and it looks like he's getting 20 to 25 carries a game on a consistent basis, making plays. He's a lead back. Graham, through his first couple of years in San Antonio, was sort of like a scat back, a little bit of a 3rd-down guy, did a little bit of everything. Now, he would run the ball, but he was also catching the ball in the backfield. They line him up in the slot, jet sweep, pop passes. They're trying to find creative ways to get the ball in his hands and allow him to make plays. Now, we'll see how they use Graham in his senior year. He might shift into more of a role where he's getting the ball on a regular basis in the traditional way, or maybe they continue to do what they've done, and possibly that's what TCU's plan is for him. But Martin, at least right now, looks more like your every day, every week, getting the ball on a consistent basis, heavy workload type of running back. 5'11", 185 pounds, and another guy with a really good offer list that TCU was able to lock in. It definitely feels like their strategy when it comes to running back. They want to get guys in the high school ranks who they can have on campus for a few years, and those are going to be the dudes competing for the starting job. I really think, yes, there's 4 or 5 potential starters that could step into that role for TCU this upcoming year, but at the moment, it's a battle between Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne, and those are going to be the 2 guys that have the opportunity to start the year at that position. In the transfer portal, whether it's Trey Sanders or Kavorian Barnes or Dominic Johnson, they're looking for a change of pace back. And at least the last few years, it's been a bigger player who can possibly be like a short yardage guy, give a little bit of a different look out there. But I believe they're trying to find the dude in high school recruiting and then supplement in the portal with players that have more of a specific role. And again, like, is it right or wrong? I think like we're making these bold proclamations about team building and how teams are approaching this. We're still in the very early stages of this new era of college football. I would have liked to have seen them the last few years take more initiative, get more experienced backs who have like time as lead running backs. Now, Barnes is kind of a fascinating case because at UTSA, his first few years, he was that dude. And then last season, dealt with some injuries, and also it appears kind of fell in the doghouse maybe. It's had some young guys that jumped him on the depth chart because they were healthy and available. And so some changes there. But bottom line, I mean, he's done that in the past. So maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but it feels to me like he's being recruited to fill a specific role, and they're trying to do, or they're trying to find like the guy in the transfer portal. So Brock King and Monte Martin. King's a cornerback, Martin's a running back. Both commit to TCU for the 2026 class as they continue here on the recruiting trail, trying to get this class pretty much wrapped up before the season starts. That's the new trend across college football. I mean, you're going to have some big names that waited out, but honestly, with the signing day now being in December, a lot of these players, they want to get this decision out of the way before their senior year of high school so that they can focus on playing ball, and also just so they can not have that stress of thinking about it, during the school year, during the season, and they can look forward to, if they're graduating earlier and enroll early, getting on campus in that second semester. When we come back, I talked on Thursday to Clint Foster about his movie, Remember the Alamo Bowl. Some of you had thoughts on that. I'll share that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. All right, so on Thursday, I talked with Clint Foster about his movie, Remember the Alamo Bowl, which won an award at the Panther City Film Festival for Best Texas Feature. Now, it's not out to the public yet. It will be, he said, in the fall. And I believe he said he's just going to put it on his YouTube page and people can watch it there. But I was really talking to him more about that game and some of his memories and some of the things he learned through the process of making the film. I asked you guys to share your memories about it. Brian Caper said, we were there with my dad and my brother, almost left at halftime, but it was raining and nobody wanted to walk through it. And then, wow, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys stuck it out. I'm glad you guys stayed. I was tempted to turn it off, and I don't even really remember why I kept it on. I guess I just was like, okay, I'll see what happens in the second half. But watching it back, it's funny to remember that it took them a while. Like they kicked a field goal kind of early in the third quarter, and then they scored a touchdown about midway through the third quarter, but it was still 31-10 with like 6 minutes left in the third. They got a big hit on a kick return. After that touchdown, make it 31-10, recovered that, and then made it 31-17, like right before the fourth started. And then it was like, okay, now you have a chance, right? But pretty amazing, just the comeback itself. And yeah, it's like I was telling Clint, it's a cool thing about college football. It's not, it's one of the most memorable bowl games ever. It's not a huge moment in the history of the sport, but it's very important to TCU fans because of what happened, because of how improbable it was, and the way that team hung in there with all the injuries. And it wasn't just a Trayvon Boykin suspension. They had Josh Doxson out, a number of other receivers. It was a real mash unit there. It was a tough game against a good team, and they found a way to come back and get it done. David said Clint is as genuine as they come. Had the privilege of talking with him before games with the Carter. He's right about how important that game was for TCU. Yeah, he's a good dude, and support his project. A lot of you have monetarily, just helping him get that movie made. But I'm super excited for him. I know he loves TCU, and it's awesome that he went ahead and did it. I'm sure like a lot of people had that idea. We all love that game. He actually took the initiative to go talk to everybody and put together, feature film about it, which was really cool to see. Big Easy said he watches a lot of Clint's podcasts. He's funny and a talented guy. David Mead said best and biggest comeback ever in all college football. It's certainly up there, man. It's one of the best games I ever saw. Just truly an amazing and improbable night there in San Antonio. And then Jim Norris said two things that should be mentioned. First, the major reason we're able to come back is we knocked their QB out of the game at the end of the half. Without them, they had no offense. Second, in the OU game, we had all the momentum at the end of regulation, and they couldn't stop the run. As I remember, we could have gone for a fairly short yardage score, but instead GP decided to go to overtime, which gave them the win. I remember being incredulous of that decision, and to be fair, it's the only time I remember totally disagreeing with their strategy, but I'm still chapped about it. So addressing both those things, yes, you're right. Vernon Adams, Oregon's quarterback, got hurt, and that changed the game. I think what changed the game even more, Oregon's starting center also got hurt. And Oregon had a backup center in there who could not snap the ball. Like, he got the yips, literally. And I don't know how many it was, but it was multiple times a drive in some instances where the ball was just rolling back to the quarterback. And that gave the TCU defense an incredible amount of energy and allowed them to keep TCU in that ball game. So, yes, you're right. That was a huge part of it. That injury played a big role. The OU game, I'd have to go back and watch it fully. I think you're misremembering a little bit. Now, there might have been a chance where he had to go score a touchdown and he ended up settling for a field goal, but they went for 2 at the end of regulation to try to win that game instead of taking it to overtime. So maybe I misread. Maybe you thought they should have taken it to overtime, but that was the big decision in that game. GP decided to go for 2. They didn't get it, and then OU ended up winning by 1 point, and they did that instead of taking the extra point to take it to OT, where, I mean, maybe they could have won. It did feel like the momentum was on their side, but also it's on the road. You're probably just trying to escape there with a win. I don't know. Tough decision. We'll be back on Tuesday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.